Emotional Quotient. I'm Carl. I am an addict, alcoholic, and a German Shepherd dog. And my sobriety date is August 22nd, 2014.
I'm Lindsey. I'm an alcoholic, and my sobriety date is September 6th, 2015.
And this is SoberPod.
SoberPod.com. Yeah, SoberPod, keep it authentic, no facades. If it's real, then you know it's ours. Welcome.
SoberPod is a podcast dedicated to the idea that one addict or alcoholic helping another is crucial to building a life in recovery. This season, as we read from our book, this 366 Effing Days Sober, which I don't have sitting in front of me, but I do have one, which is falling apart. I need to get another one. And then, of course, Lindsey's book, Spirit Vigilante, and you can get both of those books. And so Spirit Vigilante is really like Lindsey's way to try to give you the learnings and teachings that she has acquired in order to kind of live her life in recovery in general. And then of course you can get there by going to thespiritvigilante.com. And then of course the 366 Effing Days Sober is really more, my take after 8 years of being in recovery and all the little lessons learned along the way to help you in your daily life. Some of them are funny. Some of them are actually kind of sad, to be honest. Some of them end very sadly, like their daily reading, like don't you suck. And then
So reflect on that.
yeah, reflect on how shitty it is. So
Cheers.
but you can pick up those books by going to our respective URLs, SoberPod.com and thespiritvigilante.com. And they're both great books, by the way. Just want to let you know. So what are we doing here? What are we doing in this episode, in this mix of our weekly podcasts, Lindsey?
So I think we're talking about those moments where we spin out of control and throw adult temper tantrums. And on the flip side of that, how we can move towards an emotional intelligence and ways to self-regulate in adulthood, because it's no longer socially acceptable to throw a temper tantrum, but it's not your fault that you are. When we're kids, we do that in the middle of the grocery store aisle and it's kind of acceptable, but we still have all those emotions and they're still there, especially if we don't know how to utilize them and have been drinking and drugging them away. So I think that's kind of my, hopefully, where we're going, high level view. What do you think?
Yeah, I think we're the reading is from the 366 Effing Days Sober, or the prompt for this episode is from 366 Effing Days Sober. It's from May 19th. If you have the book, read along. But we'll get to that in just a second. Hey, Lindsey.
Yeah.
You did a book signing recently.
I did.
What was that like?
It was awesome. It was a little bookstore in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, where I've been going to the beach since I was in the womb. And it was I've been going to that store for years. So it was kind of a full circle moment, and seeing my book on the shelf and having people buy it and wanting it signed. And I've thus heard of those people sharing it with others and more books being bought off the shelf in the past week. So yeah, it was really cool.
What's the name of the bookstore?
It's an honor. It's called Browse About Books in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware.
Okay. And so you went and what was it like to have people come up and actually sign your, because the first time I ever signed my book, by the way, was a real surreal experience. So I bought it. I didn't even think about it. It didn't ever cross my mind that I would be signing the book to people. Right. I just wanted to give away the book to somebody. Right. I gave the book to somebody. And then they were like, "Are you going to sign it?" And I was like, "Oh, this is weird." That became really strange experience. So,
yeah, when I started the writing process, I imagined that my book was just going to magically be on every shelf and no one would even really know who I was. I wasn't interested in that until I realized that I need to more intimately and personally, spread this message. And now my freaking picture's on the cover of the book. So it's the complete opposite of what I thought. And it was interesting. And I sat at this little table, this little desk, right when you walk in the door.
Yeah,
so
and they're
every
like,
single
who
person,
the hell are you?
yeah, every single person that walked in saw me that day. Like that's a humbling experience. So I was proud of myself for just going, honestly, and everything starts somewhere. So
Yeah.
I'm just blessed to be able to do it, and happy that bookstores are wanting me there, and just getting to know new people and getting connected in different communities has been really fun.
Yeah, there's a lot to learn from just kind of putting yourself out there and just sitting at a little table.
Sitting, I'm just like, hey.
So, do you have any other ones coming up or no?
I do. I have one in Bethany Beach. It's not till July though, so I'll share. I don't have the details.
Is it Maryland? Where is that?
Bethany Beach is right next to Rehoboth, or a couple down from Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. So there's kind of a row of beaches starting. You may have heard of Ocean City, Maryland.
No, I'm a West Coaster completely.
It's not. It's a different OC. It's East Coast. It's not even the East Coast version of OC. It's just Ocean City, Maryland, and then you have Fenwick Island, Delaware, Bethany, Dewey, Rehoboth. Yeah, so it's kind of like this line of beaches, and we have a place in Fenwick Island, so we have the luxury of being able to go there every now and then. So I'll be doing that. Hopefully more in between.
When is that?
It's July, but I can't tell you the date off the top of my head.
It's July. Well,
July.
You know the month. That's all that matters.
It's the last week of July.
You got the year and the month. I mean, you're good.
Just show up every day at 11:30.
Until Lindsey gets there.
One time you'll be surprised.
Okay, I was talking about being places. There's two places that I go on the regular, right? One of them is a meeting. I go to ACA on Friday nights at 5:30 in Corona, California. If anybody's ever interested in going there, I hope to see you there. And then the other is the third Friday of the month. I host karaoke, which I just did. It's the Corona Serenity Club.
Come to that.
Yeah, so because it's the weirdest thing to do is to make it fun, right? I mean, it's like you could easily go there and just collect the money, sing some songs, do whatever, and be really stupid about it. But I love to make it fun, and being in sobriety, it takes a whole different level of engagement to do that stuff.
Yeah.
Let me just say, it invokes a whole different level of crazy that I really enjoy.
Yeah.
So I really enjoy doing that stuff. So if you're interested, it's the third Friday of every month at the Corona Serenity Club. By the way, all the money and the proceeds generated from that go to support the Corona Serenity Club. They are like a local club here in Corona, and they're a nonprofit entity that you get to support, and it's all recovery related. So there you go. So talking about being places and doing things, I don't have a yoga den, but I do have a club to support.
No, that sounds awesome. I'll eventually make my way out to California and try to.
Come hang out for a karaoke jam.
I'd love to.
Which we call soberoki, is what we call it.
Oh no, you don't.
Yeah, we do. We call it.
Do you
soberoki.
actually? Are you?
Yeah, we call it soberoki.
With me? Oh. Okay.
Well, what else are you gonna call it? Yeah.
No, that's weird.
Okay, so Lindsey, we're here to talk about emotional intelligence and what is it again? Emotional quotient.
Emotional quotient, the elusive emotional quotient that has yet to be determined.
All right, so I'm going to do the reading from May 19th, which inspires the rest of the conversation. So here it is. This is May 19th. Man, you know those moments when nothing goes your way? You struggle to make ends meet, skimp, save, and feel like you're doing all the right things. And when you least expect it or need it, something else breaks. The car breaks down, the washing machine just stops working, the water heater doesn't heat, you lose a can of soup, etc. Last year was one of the worst years I've had in a long time. By the way, I had a following worst year after I wrote this, which is like
you need to do an asterisk.
Yeah, asterisk. No, Carl had more worse years after this.
Boy.
So It seemed at every turn it rained and then poured. I would overcome one thing and another would pop up to take its place. There is a video, see the link below, where this Irish uncle loses his soup and throws a cringy man fit you must see to believe. At one point he shouts the madness of life. And in that scream, I can see all of the anger and frustration that I have ever had. How I felt throughout the years at any given time when things just aren't going my way. Today, instead of throwing a fit, I can only laugh at the absurdity of my childish desire to make a can of soup appear. It's just soup for fuck's sake. Reflections. When was the last time you threw an adult fit? How did it feel afterward? Daily challenge. Watch the video of Irish uncle loses his soup, and you can either search for that on Google or look in the show notes and find the link to that. And if you relate to it on any level, just know that you're one of us. So,
or a human being.
Or yeah, one of us. Right? So Lindsey, just to ask the question of the reflections, when's the last time you threw an adult fit, and how did it feel afterward?
Gosh, I can't remember. The last time I screamed at the top of my lungs was with my ex-boyfriend a few years ago, and I just had it with. It doesn't matter, but I screamed and was like, "What are you doing to me?" And how I felt after was just, I was honestly to say, like, that was just kind of reflective of that whole time period for me. And I was losing my shit. So, I actually felt like that was valid even after. And maybe that's because it was towards somebody else and it was in close quarters and only one other person who deserved to hear it heard it. But it's amazing because I did used to have a really, really bad temper, and I don't anymore. Like, I really don't fly off the handle. So I don't have a super good example, but how about you?
Oh, I got too many examples.
But maybe my tantrums just look different, but that's off the top of my head. So
yeah, I still talk about it. I'm sure it's now infamous on the podcast to a certain degree if you've listened for any long period of time. Like, I was just a couple of years ago, actually more than a couple of years ago now. My sponsor was still alive. So the last one I really like destroyed some shit. Let me just say, even the other night, man, I got woken up by dogs coming in the room, and I threw my headphones across the room, and I hit the wall, and it took a little chunk out of the wall. So yeah, that was the last time I just threw like a little fit. But that was literally like can I preface it?
Yes.
Can I rationalize it?
Please. That's what I just did that. It's self-justification. Yeah.
Well, I had to get up for surgery at like 4:30 in the morning, and it was, I don't know, 10:30 at night, 11:30 at night.
Yeah.
And I needed to, and you know what I mean? Like, I just got to bed like an hour, and I'm not going to sleep anyway. And it's already bad enough. And then my wife like let the dog into the room at 10:30, and I am like, why would you, like, you know what I mean? So I just like immediately just like lost my shit, because again, it's like, but I said whatever, and I just went back to sleep because I was upset. But yeah, that's my rationalization. That's what I'm sticking to.
And how did you feel after?
Terrible, because I'm like, it didn't need it, because the fact is the damage had already been done. The dog is already there. I'm already woke up. What more does it need? Why do I add more pain to the process? Right?
Yeah.
Like, that's all that I was doing. So I was like, whatever. As soon as I figured it, like, it's not going to help anything. Why do I continue to do that? I just need to go back to sleep. That's what I want. That's what I need to do. Right. And that's what I did. I was like, fuck it. I'm good. She tried to talk to me, and I'm like, nope, I'm going back to sleep. Thank you very much. And that's all there is to this one. You know what I mean? Like, what am I going to do? Sit there and tell her, like, you fucking let the dog in, blah, blah, blah. What point would that serve on any level? Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
So,
especially when you're riled up like that.
Yeah. Exactly. So that was my most recent deal. But let's go back. Let's go back to because for a long time in recovery, and I know that a lot of us are very similar to this. I only have one solution to let's just say the three emotions that I feel on a daily basis. 10 years ago, if I was angry, I drank. If I was happy, I drank. If I was sad, I drank. These are the three emotions that Carl has.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, I have no other definitions for how I feel, right? Like, I don't know any other secondary emotions. You know what I mean? Like, I literally have no clue how to operate if in early recovery, right? So if you in the first 60 days, I was just like a complete blown up balloon, ready to pop, and just ready to just fire off with these emotions. ACA, they call it the internal drugstore, right? So when I can't feel, when I don't know how to feel something, when I don't know how to experience it, I'll just reach for an emotion that works.
Interesting.
And I'll pop off with anger, right? So I react using that emotional drugstore, and it gives me all the juice I need in order to engage on that level. So I think for me, getting sober was, especially after 20 years, I didn't know how to regulate. I didn't know how to engage with myself. I didn't know how to engage with others. I felt very vulnerable and just out of sorts. I mean, I just entirely different person without alcohol in my system. So it was very difficult. So what about you? In your early sobriety, how did that work for you?
Oh gosh. Yeah, it's kind of, as you were talking, I was remembering, and it's kind of felt like I was just an exposed nerve walking around, that, the slightest poke. And I think I've kind of reframed, I cry a lot. So it's not anger, but it still can be a tantrum, and I get frustrated with myself. And sadness came up a lot for me in early sobriety. And it's funny because there's things on Instagram says, the things my toddler cried about this week, and they list crazy things, because he had peanut butter on the wrong side of the bread. And
you're like, which side was it?
Exactly. and I felt like the things that were making me upset were toddler things, and it obviously was never about that thing. But spilling the coffee, the shower curtain fell down, and that was so catastrophic to me, and it has nothing to do with logic. And obviously I can just put the shower curtain back up, but it just felt like every little thing was pouring down on me and just building, so yeah, it was hard for sure. I was going to ask you now, can you feel, or back then, could you feel emotions starting to happen and then catch yourself? Is there a pause now, or that? Yeah. How did that develop?
So let's just say, it's so funny. In the past, in our second season of the podcast, and it's no longer available, and I wish it was, but we did a 6-part series on emotions and emotional intelligence. And one of the things that we did was, on top of that, is we created this book in this booklet or PDF, and then we also created we took the feelings wheel, and we went and we as part of a podcast episode, we went around and we said, okay, what is your base feeling? What is the one feeling that is your go-to emotion? Is it anger? Is it sadness? Is it happiness? What is your base level operating kind of thing? So then we did episodes around that stuff. And really what that helped to do for me a lot was get into what learning about emotional intelligence and like how that worked and what are emotions and how many are there and what do we do.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we did is we referenced the feelingswheel.com there. So if you go there, you can see feelingswheel.com, but we also kind of adopted that. So we created like that 6 series of podcasts. And then we also did this ebook. So if you go to soberpod.com/glass case of emotion, you can, I think that's what it is. And I'll put it in the show notes. But yeah, it's soberpod.com/glass case of emotion. And you'll get like this emotional intelligence ebook. There's like a worksheet that goes along with that.
Yeah, great resources.
Yeah, so if you go to the ebook, it'll give you like a lot of like background about what emotional intelligence is, how to get through it and that kind of stuff. And then the workbook will give you like a lot of questions about, relating to that stuff, like self-awareness and, how you're, able to do that, self-regulation, empathy, and then like social skills. It'll give you all these questions about like kind of what your triggers are. So having said all that, soberpod.com/glass case of emotion, you can go there to really get started on like your journey about looking like into like what is emotional intelligence and how does it work and why did, I don't know, me starting to drink and drug at 12 years old really turn into a lifetime of unmet emotional needs, right? Like how did that happen? But let me just say, getting sober, like to your question, like I had no reference, no framework for what it meant to participate in my own skin on any sober level. So when it came to an emotion that would come up, at times I felt like a child, like you're saying, but more so, right? I felt like just an insolent little kid. I had no protection from the things. This is a really good example. And people talk about this all the time. When you're drinking, when I started drinking, what it did for me is it pushed back all these emotions and it put them all at this arm's distance to where I didn't have to worry about it anymore. And it even in my daily life, even if I did something at the grocery store that was totally embarrassing, I wouldn't have to relive it the next day because I'd be drunk by 3 p.m.
Yeah.
And I would and it wouldn't even consider it, and life just peters on, right? Just whatever. When you get sober, all those emotions that have been kept at this distance, it's like a tsunami, right? It's like when the tsunami's coming, all that water pulls away from the shore, right? As we've all learned. And all that emotions is just all out there in the ocean waiting to rush ashore, right? And that's really what happens with me in my sobriety. All of a sudden, all these emotions are rushing to shore, and I do not know how to handle them. And I think for a lot of people, that involves a lot of relapse, a lot of acting out, going back out, drinking, drugging, whatever. Also, acting out, which is adrenaline junkie stuff, or acting out emotionally, beating up canisters in your garage, at even 8 years sober, or 7 years sober, whatever I did. Like those are the things like that happened to me throughout all of my sobriety or all of my young sobriety. So that's a big part of like when I got sober, I needed, and I did not know, like I needed to learn about all this stuff. I needed to absorb myself in it because I came from such a lacking point, like all that stuff was out, in the ocean somewhere. It wasn't like everybody else in the world, by the way. Everybody else was growing up. Yeah, they're drinking on the weekends or whatever, but a majority of their time is spent in sober breathing, right? Sober operations. When they experienced a problem, they dealt with it. When they needed to learn and grow, they did so. Not me. I started pounding back vodka and said, nope, see you later. I'm out checking out of this mess. And so I didn't have the emotional intelligence, quote unquote, at that time because I had no practice. I had no things. And that's the beauty of this stuff, is that once you start to do it, it's just like getting physically fit. You can get emotionally fit just like you can get physically fit. It just takes practice, dedication, adherence to, and courage to like really approach these things. And I just needed to do that, but it's so terrifying because it's like ground you just have never, walked on. So what about you? How did your emotional journey turn?
Yeah. I think a lot of it has to do with kind of what we were talking about last week about thinking our thoughts are us. And I also thought my emotions were me, like I was so wrapped up in them that it was my fault. And why do I feel this way? And I don't know how to handle my emotions and blah, blah, blah. And today, and what I learned as the days went on in sobriety is really noticing when those things happen, and not necessarily the situation I'm in when they happen, but what preceded them, like, am I really tired? Have I done too much today? Have I been around people too much? I really carefully have to manage my energy today. And that has a lot to do with keeping myself on an even keel so that I don't express myself in a way that is A, ineffective, and B, I'll regret later. So something I'm trying to do now is not waiting till I hit 0, but trying to retreat or give myself what I need when I'm at like 10 or 20%, and I can see where it's going. Once I hit 0, there's no pause, there's no off switch. So that's something that I've cultivated, and it's different for everybody. So like I always say, collecting the data on when this stuff happens, is it always with the same person? Is it always at the end of the day? Have you, are you hungry, angry, lonely, tired? All of those things. So that's another experiment. It's just another experiment, right? And then
another data point.
And so many data points. And just like changing my newsletter that's coming out tomorrow is on data points. You'll love it. But yeah, just changing things. And okay, I felt way more composure yesterday. Why was that?
Yeah, I didn't. I had no background or experience, and really, where I started getting a lot of my emotional understanding was in meetings and those kinds of things. Self-regulation was not a thing, right?
Yeah.
And early on, it just isn't. So, but self-awareness was something that I really needed to work on. Because I was just, like you say, like it's data points. So once you understand like where these things are coming from and how they're coming, then you can kind of move into other solutions, right? But until you actually spend the time to do that stuff, and a lot of that stuff for me, like again, being involved with other people, being involved with safe places and community, and where people may have understand like somebody of my ilk,
Right, absolutely. It's safe places that you can talk about it.
Yeah. And until I was able to like really do that, or pick up the phone and call somebody and tell them how I was feeling, and because I had no outlet for any of it. Not no outlet. I had no way to gather data, right?
Right.
I was, my family was not going to tell me. My family is not going to give me any more feedback than they've already tried to give me, let's just say. Right? They were done. They were like, no, we've tried to tell Dad that, he's fucking crazy. And every time we tell him, he gets more crazy. So let's not tell him that anymore, So, so we work ourselves into this isolation, and that's a really hard place to be, right? Because how are we going to get self-aware if everybody in our lives, it takes so much courage, it takes so much ability to step outside of ourselves, to reach out for help, and then begin to do that stuff. And it's so funny, I sponsor dudes, and so many dudes do not utilize me the way that I think that they should be utilizing me, right? I'm like,
no, I know exactly what you mean.
If it were the only way that I came out of this was being complete, I just fell on every sword. I'm just I'm done. I am so done. And I just call him up and just say, I threw the screwdriver, my bad. I talk to me about that. What does that mean? You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
don't want to use and drink and fuck up anymore. How do I save this? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I know that these dudes are out there throwing screwdrivers. I know exactly what they're doing. They're not fooling anybody. But you know what? We all just sit there. We all just want to hide and protect our little egos or whatever. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
I could care less anymore. Like, I want to save my skin and my ass at the same time. You know?
Yeah. And I think the courage that comes with self-awareness is really making that decision to not stay in denial. Because that's really what we're trying to avoid, is facing our denial, because we've gotten so rooted in these beliefs. And I was trying to think, like, when did I first start collecting data, quote unquote, was when I went to therapy, not for my drinking, just because I thought I was going crazy. I happened to be drinking a lot at the time, but I didn't know that had anything to do with it. And I would just come in week after week with chaotic episodes, and I don't know what's wrong with me, and blah, blah, blah. And my therapist said, I notice
There's a
when
pattern
these
going on
things
here.
happen, you're usually drinking. Like, that's just like something I know, right? Something I noticed. And I was, of course, I didn't admit at the time. I was like, nope, it has nothing to do with that. I'm drunk all the time. So what do you, it's not a good data point. But that really did give me pause. Like, okay, there's a correlation there. I wouldn't have articulated it that way back then, but okay. I had to face, I had to face the truth. And some people aren't ready, and some people know that they're not ready. There's still little things in my life that aren't as toxic that I'm probably staying in denial about. I mean, I know I am.
I'm totally in denial about a ton of things.
Yeah.
Right? I just, I don't know what I don't know. But, so that's why collecting the data and self-awareness are so important, because it's like, there's a mindfulness to it. So that's why in the SoberPod.com/glass case of emotion, there are like two other things associated in there. Like, one is like a feelings tracker. Yeah. And then the other is a sleep tracker, right?
Yeah.
Basic things to like try to understand, like, because they're like key indicators of like, on why is it that on Mondays I tend to feel this way, right? Why is it that like, on that day I felt whatever. And then not only that, is like having a feelings tracker will just kind of like, it'll get you accustomed to knowing, because you're looking at the feelings wheel as a reference. You'll get to understand more about what feelings are, and like what kind of levels of variance there are, how you're really triggered. So for instance, I may feel frustrated, but frustration is a subset of anger, right? So if I'm frustrated, then why am I frustrated? Like, what is it behind that? Is it because I'm feeling embarrassment, or is it because of, you know what I mean? Like, there's certain things that you'll understand about yourself. And then getting for like tools to do that stuff. So two tools there to clearly, from data point, tracking data. Then there's like your journaling, right? It's like if you get into journaling and you're being mindful about your feelings, etc., you basically like will understand that, by doing your journaling, there's more data, and it's more descriptive data. So then you get to kind of see your own words, and you get to take like a more of a bird's eye view of things, and see kind of like, oh, this is, so along with that data and along with your feelings tracker, your sleep tracker, your journaling, etc., you start to really see like how you're impacted and what's going on. And again, there's a lot more to explore in terms of that. And if you actually go look at that ebook, it'll tell you more about like, what to look for in terms of, moving forward, about how to get more emotionally intelligent. But yeah, so self-awareness is key. And by the way, being sober is probably your biggest like contributor to your self-awareness, because now you're going to remember. But that's also part of the problem too, right? For me, it was,
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing with self-awareness that I didn't get at the beginning, and takes practice, is to trying to collect that data, to continue the metaphor, from a place of curiosity and neutrality rather than judging it. Because if you're just creating this emotional feedback loop for yourself, which I did, so now I'm angry, and now I'm also angry that I'm angry, because I should know better.
Yeah.
So that just totally defeats the purpose. And the reason I always use the analogy of an experiment is like, be the scientist. They're not attached to the data and trying to make a certain outcome. If you're a good scientist, you just want to make sure the data is correct, right? And then see what variable you can change for the next experiment, and hopefully the results will change, right? Like it doesn't have to be that dramatic.
Exactly. Yeah. And so so it kind of moves us into what do we do about it, right? Like so talking about regulation. AA, we talk about, pause when agitated. There is that kind of stuff. How did what's that?
Restraint of pen and tongue.
Yeah, restraint of pen and tongue, which I rarely have. But you know who Dean Koontz is, a writer?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Dean Koontz says, some people think only intellect counts, knowing how to solve problems, knowing how to get by, knowing how to identify an advantage and seize it. But the functions of intellect are insufficient without courage, love, friendship, compassion, and empathy. Right?
Ooh, I like that.
So one of the skills that is not really talked about a lot is empathy, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, of course, AA promotes love and tolerance and all that other stuff. And the culture that surrounds all that stuff is probably the one thing that allowed me to move more into an emotionally intelligent existence.
Yeah.
Because I was we talked about safe spaces before, but that's what it did. And then the one thing about attending meetings, which I always kind of feel like there's a set of sobriety. You see it online, especially people just boo AA and they're like, oh, it's it's a cult and it's all this other stuff. But I think the thing that they're lacking is the ability, because you don't really get it online. You can't really get it online. Is when you attend a meeting week after week and see somebody's progression and hear their struggles and their stories, and you look them in the eye and you see the tears well up as they talk about their mother, their children, or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. And it in turn, we have these mirror neurons that fire in our brains that basically makes us easily relating. That's how we develop empathy after years of suppressing all this shit. And so for me, I make it a point to, when I sit in a meeting, that I look somebody in the eye, try to look people in the eye when they speak. I put down my fucking phone, excuse the F-bomb, but I put down my phone and I try to, what I'm doing in those moments, whether it seems like a boring topic and I've heard it 1,000 times or whatever, I'm working on empathy. I'm not working, if I'm not learning something else or along those lines, part of what I'm doing there is empathy. So I just bring that to the forefront and I listen to somebody speak and I try to feel what they feel and I try to empathize with their situations. Without that, it's like, well, let me just say, for me, it was a fast track to learning about my own emotions and situations. And I was like, it's kind of like hacking, the system a little bit. I was like, ooh, since I neglected all this emotional work in my upbringing, now I'm going to hack it and try to acquire some learnings from other people. And what do they say? Any fool can learn from their own mistakes, but it's the wise person who chooses to learn from others. Yeah. And that's kind of what I'm doing in those situations. And I'm like, oh, okay, intellect is great and all that other stuff. But in this case, I'm now begging and borrowing from other people in order to acquire that same thing for myself. So what do you think about going to meetings versus not going to meetings and how that improves your emotional life?
That's so good. As you were talking, I was thinking that's another way of collecting research, right? Yeah. I mean, it's qualitative research, it's anecdotal, but you start to see patterns in other people and patterns in yourself. And I love what you said, the mirroring. I was talking about it this morning in a meeting. I don't understand the how and why meetings make my life so much better and keep me sober. I just know there's a positive correlation between how many meetings I'm going to and how I feel. Okay. So I don't need to know how it works. And it's amazing that I tried so hard beating my head against the wall to want to know every single intricacy and how hard it is for us to trust a program, a spirit, higher power, when we trust all of these things in our lives without fully understanding them. Like, I don't know how my record player, I could think about it every day, how little grooves make music with a needle. I don't know, but I still use it. I don't know how the plane flies or the mechanics. I never went to, but I'll sit there and I trust that plane's going to get me there, you know? And so God and AA, and these are just such bigger, infinite topics. And I don't need to understand them to use them as a resource, you know? And I've noticed, I've seen a lot of the online stuff, not recently, but when I was first beginning AA, because I was looking for anything to say it wasn't the solution. Mm-hmm. So I've seen a lot of, there's people who almost make like anti-AA their religion. Like they're so against it that I'm like, wow, you're more passionate about
not going.
Yeah. Right. Like if you didn't think there was something to it or feel threatened by it in some way, why would you feel the need to attack it? You know, mm-hmm. Like it's kind of weird, but I don't know what that's about. But I just know that going to meetings helps me. Now I do kind of know a little bit of the how and why, because we know about social interaction and how the opposite of addiction is connection. And, you know, there's definitely that kind of thing to it. But I don't need to understand I don't need to fully understand something to get a benefit from it. And guess what? It's not all about me. I'm going there because I want to continue to help people and give it away, because it's the only way I can keep it. You know, so I know that's a lot of jargon and a lot of what some people might see as hocus pocus, but I came in as one of the most intellectual, rational, logical people in the world. I did not want to believe it, but I couldn't deny that it was working for countless others. So.
Yeah. It was my biggest hurdle was actually step 2 is funny, right?
Yeah, of course.
So, you know, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. And it did. As soon as you put any hint of the word God or spirituality in there, I was out. I'm like, I could, you know, step 1, I could totally understand. But, you know, but as soon as you start putting, you know, other stuff in, and then and then I was insane, right? Like I was like, I'm not insane. I just like to drink a lot. But one of the things that was part of that solution is like, but could you believe that it helped other people? And I was like, in sitting in the rooms, I couldn't deny that it actually was a benefit for good for them, not good for me, right? Because I wasn't, I wasn't going to do it. But yeah, I had to stay a little while. That's the other thing. So I had to stay a little while before I understood, it might be a benefit for me. Which, by the way, kind of brings us to the other side of this, the other dimension of this emotional intelligence is like, so there's a reason, you know, I wouldn't want to get emotionally intelligent if it was just me sitting in a room with my dick in my hand, right? Because who cares, right? Honestly, who cares? If it's just me in a room sitting there, I don't care. I don't care whether I'm emotionally intelligent or not. I don't care if I throw screwdrivers at the wall or not. You know, the fact is like the reason I care to be emotionally intelligent, not only to identify it in myself, but to really be able to identify it in others. Because, moreover, this is my thinking. I may be flawed. I may be crazy. You can tell me. You can read my label.
I will.
So the fact is this: is like sobriety would be really great if it wasn't for having to deal with people once I got sober, right? Because the only thing that really triggers me, quote unquote, if you want to throw out the trigger word, sorry for you anti-woke people, but the only thing that really triggers me is other fucking people. Like it would be, sobriety would be wonderful if it wasn't for the fact that I had to deal with people once I got sober. And deal with the emotions that come along with it. So in order for me to get emotional intelligent, the only reason I need to get emotionally intelligent is so I can deal with other people and their emotions as well, right? Because then it's a relationship that I'm working on. More than anything else, I'm dealing with relationships, you know, once I get sober. That's it. Like for me, all my anger, frustration, tears, and, all the other stuff is all based around relationships, whether it be with my children, my wife, my bosses, the crossing guard, whoever, right?
Mm-hmm.
More than anything, that's what I'm trying to get a handle on. That's, baseline, understand myself, wonderful. What I like, what I dislike, what I prefer, Because if what does they say? Like, if you don't know the port that you're going, any wind is favorable, right? It's kind of the idea here. It's like, if you don't know who you are, and if you don't know who you like and what you like and dislike, etc., if you don't know the truth about yourself, then anybody who comes across your path is, is going to be a disturbance or just whatever, right? You're never going to know your preference. So for me, it's like I needed to understand that. And then I found out the people that I enjoy or that I like to participate with or that I have, care or common or empathy for, etc. Like, so it had to start somewhere. Yeah. But ultimately it came down to dealing with people. And I'll tell you, like, dude, even yesterday I was like, I'm yelling at the referee coach, I'm like, yeah, I'm like, I don't, but the fact is like, but I know where I stand. Yeah. Child safety was involved.
Right.
I'm a human being who's going to, say something. So you're going to turn around and kick me out of here. Exactly. Go right ahead. But you know what? I know where I stand. Right. And I know, and I'm not going to apologize, Yeah. When you do wrong, when you're doing wrong, guess what? I get to say something. Yay. I mean, I'm not going to go and chase you down and beat the shit out of you now. I'm not going to run you over in the parking lot, which I did think about.
Hopefully.
Hopefully, right? But practice, pause and when agitated and restrain a pen and tongue and all that good stuff. But the fact is like, ultimately that's what we're doing here. Emotional intelligence isn't just for our benefit. It's literally, it benefits others, and we get to experience deeper and effective, things in our lives. Again, love, being compassionate, empathy, all these other things that go along with that stuff. Relationships as a whole,
Yeah. I can't even begin to understand myself if not through relationships and my interactions with others. And that's what it is. Everything relating to other people, it's not even about them. It's about us. And they're all just reflecting back to us our own stuff. And that's how I get to know who I am, is through other people. In sobriety, we're told the first year not to date. And I took that like kind of longer than that and said, I need to work on myself because before I can be in a relationship. And someone finally said to me, like, you might need to work on yourself in a relationship to learn those interpersonal lessons. And I'm like, oh, okay, right. Because how can I practice it sitting by myself in a room? So that's kind of, yes, it's about dealing with other people because they will show you how to deal with yourself.
I mean, I believe it's two ways. I believe it's you do learn and grow, like moving forward, like when you're dealing with other people, it teaches you more about yourself, right? Like, it's because it's like, we're always learning, we're always engaging. Yeah. So it's like, but again, it's always with that other person, right? It's never, it's after you reach a certain point about understanding yourself, the only way that you grow is by engaging and pushing and challenging with other people. That's what is it? The Bible says iron sharpens iron, right? It's that kind of a thing. And people always throw that stuff out there as a lesson, as a learning, which only goes to say, for instance, Stoicism talks about like we are like the upper and lower jaws, right? That we work together in order to chew food, kind of a thing. So that's kind of the thing. So without one another, we don't grow, we don't progress, we don't, we don't get nutrients, kind of a thing. So, and again, there's so many other things to learn as it relates to emotions and engagement, because it's like once you start to do this stuff, you start to get the game. For me, if you talk about data points, keeping score for me is really about like you start to move into real virtues and principles, and you start to learn more about the details of being trustworthy, having integrity, being, brotherly love, etc. Like there's all these things that kind of get, stretched out across this stuff that are very much vital to our existence as human beings. Never mind being people in recovery. It's like, it's one thing to be a person in recovery, but it's one thing to be a fucking human being, right? And to be like attentive and to be aware and loving and, again, compassionate and all that other stuff that we talk about.
And if this sounds like elusive and hard to reach and impossible, and
it's because it is.
And like, how can Carl and Lindsey say this? They don't understand my story. Really, if somebody else has done it, you can model and do it pretty much with everything. So and that's what I learned in the program. It's all modeling. It's all doing what other people did. They're not telling me what to do. They're showing me what they did, and I'm following it. Like, you can't be that different that it's not going to work for you, whether you choose whatever program of recovery you choose, should you decide to get sober. If somebody else has done it, you can. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, and again, an emotional intelligence is something that you can work on. It's something that you can go with. It doesn't necessarily, it's like, it's just like anything. It just takes attention, and the more you give it, the better it gets, kind of a stuff. But I think the reason why, the reading, about losing your shit and about throwing adult fits kind of stuff is just to show that, like I think you said too, we're all a little different. Some of us, our fits are going to look a little different. I'm going to throw screwdrivers. Some dude's going to slam cupboards in the kitchen complaining about his soup. The fact is that, like, we all have our little moments where we lose our shit, and we're all only human. So don't let the fact that you're human or that the tsunami is coming, stop you from, seeking, a greater depth and understanding of your emotional life. Because, again, putting down the alcohol and the drugs is one thing. It's like, it's great and it's a good start, but there is a lot more work that needs to be done. And the truth is like, if this was as easy as just stopping drinking, I would have done that 10 years ago, and I would have never looked back, and I would have just continued to live my life and not learn another stupid little thing. I would have never created a podcast, I'll tell you that. Yeah. But there's so much more to learn and understand. There's so much more to be involved with and do. And that comes from the perspective that only I have been able to find through the halls and rooms and mindset of recovery. That's really about it. It's like, and I think without that perspective of those people that have come before me, I would have been a lost little soul.
Yeah.
I would just,
I can't imagine.
Yeah, just stumbling in the dark, right?
Yeah.
So hopefully, I guess if you've been listening this long, and 30% of you do,
you will get a prize.
Yeah, please, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow us, and stay connected with us. And of course, if you want to engage with us, go to Spotify, and you can. Respond to us that way. If you're, watching on, YouTube or otherwise, please, sometimes those comments are looked at. So please engage with us there. If you have any questions, by all means, we're here. How's that?
Yeah, we are definitely here.
Lindsey,
we would love
do you have
to hear.
anything? Do you have anything to offer the person out there seeking to improve their emotional intelligence?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've kind of said it, but just taking in the data, like I said, modeling. If there's someone you like how they deal with situations, or you like the calm sense they have about them, and ask them what they're doing. Ask them how they got that, and just let it be an experiment.
Yeah, I was listening to Headspace the other morning, and it was literally a person talking exactly like that. Like, I could do it as long as I viewed everything as an experiment, right? Like, as long as I was like, it's a good process, right? Like, I'm just gonna go out there and make an experiment and see how it works. If it works, great, then I'll take it on. I think that's a wonderful way to look at it.
That's all life. Whether you're in an experiment every day, like, you react to something and then you that determines your next move. Like all these variables are thrown our way. And then once we start to see that we have control and power and can alter the variables and the XY on the plot chart, like, how amazing. Wow. Now I'm the scientist, right?
I love, can we just add that we're all mad scientists? I like that part better.
Yes, I like that too. We are.
I like that.
Only the best are. Yeah.
I like that better. All right, Lindsey. Well, that's it. That's all we have. Don't forget to, again, like, subscribe. Don't forget to purchase the books. That's one way that you can support the podcast. All proceeds from the 366 effing days sober book go to support the podcast. The only reason I'm saying this is because I just had a bill come due for all the stuff.
Yes.
I'm like, oh my gosh, that's like
on an unrelated note.
So all the email, whatever, blah blah blah. Okay, Google and Squarespace all want their money, but they could be advertisers if they'd only come on. But either way, by all means, buy the book 366 Effing Days Sober. You can get that book by going to SoberPod.com. And of course, Lindsey's book, The Spirit Vigilante, or Spirit Vigilante, is available at thespiritvigilante.com. And you can go there and pick up all her little tools and tricks. I said little, but I meant big. Pick up all her big tools and tricks to build your life in recovery. That's it. That's all she wrote. Lindsey, what do you have to say to the kind, loving, wonderful, stupendous people out there?
Trust your truth.
And I say, stay active, stay sober. See ya.
SoberPod.com. Yeah. It was a sight to see them. Breakfast with Sprite and Seagrams. Wrestling with my vices, exercising my demons. My blessings were blocked, so I never got the message. I'm stressing, I'm only 12 steps from an exit. Regret it, because my imperfections were perfected. I ain't run from it, I accept it and rep it. It's a badge to me, good stories come from a tragedy. And when you survive, the glory will come in Act 3. The wait's over, 366 days sober. Morning affirmations that can start the day for you. Use my favorite bookmark for a placeholder. Finish when the day's over. Okay. Yeah, SoberPod, keep it authentic, no facades. If it's real, then you know it's ours. Welcome.